Hello and welcome to the Introduction to Adobe InDesign technical supporting video. During this video, you will get a good understanding for the Adobe InDesign interface and learn how to use the main features and tools within the program. By the end of this video, you will be confident creating a new document and setting up a layout using both text and colour. So firstly, we're going to create a new document. To do this, you need to open up your InDesign app and then select the Create New option from the left-hand side. This should bring up the following dialog box, and as you will have learned from the worksheets, you have the presets along the top toolbar, so you can have standard print sizes will appear here, and you can click View All Presets to see a bigger list. Under Web, you have the standard sizes for websites, and under Mobile, you have some standard phone sizes. But today we're going to be focusing on the print side of things. So here, as you can see, A4 is selected. So when you look down these options along the right-hand side, you can see the dimensions are of an A4 page. If you wanted to change this and just adapt it slightly, you can still do that. It doesn't matter that you have the preset selected. And you can also change the orientation, so portrait or landscape. Facing pages refers to whether you are working with spreads in your document or single pages. So if you're working on a brochure or a magazine, for example, you will need to have this ticked so that your document has double page spreads. If you untick this, they will be single pages, for example, a poster. But don't worry if you change your mind whilst working on your document, you can change this at a later date. You can also dictate how many pages you would like in your document, but also you can add and delete pages once you are into the document. Further down, you have columns, column gutter, and margins. This dictates the grid size you'll be working on. So brought up here is a diagram to show what these refer to. So columns are the vertical strips that run down the centre of your page, and then the gutter is the space between these, and then the margins is the space around the side of your paper. So you have to imagine if you print off a sheet of paper and you have designed something and what you've done has gone too close to the edge of the paper, then it creates quite an untidy layout, and also if someone's holding it, they may easily cover that content with their fingers. So you often keep that. For a standard layout, it will be approximately 13-14 millimeters. But today, if we set that to 13 and also the columns to 6 and the gutter to 4, this is quite a good starting grid if you're wanting to create a layout. Bleed and slug, these refer to the edges of your paper, but I wouldn't worry about these unless you are sending your work off to professional printers. If you do have any questions about these, then please just send me an email and I will get back to you. This little icon along the side, as you can see, it says make all settings the same. So if you have that unchecked, you can change one of the sides to have a bigger margin, whereas if you have it the same, it will have it locked, it will keep all of them equal. So when you're happy with all the settings you have created, you can then click Create, and you will see the document. So now we are going to look at the interface in general, so you can get a good understanding of where things are and are confident when trying to find certain tools. So the first thing I'd like you to do is go to the the Window tab along the top and then find Workspace and click Advanced. You'll notice this section on the right hand side may change a little bit, but just to make sure we are working with the same screen, I'd like you to do that again, but go to Reset Advanced. This means that hopefully now we will have the same palettes listed along the right hand side. If yours looks slightly different, you can click these two arrows at the top right and that will expand them or compress them. Personally, I think it's easier when they are like this because it's just tidier and less clutter to distract you from your design. So in this window drop-down menu, you will see you have lots of different, these are called palettes listed here. So you have a Pages palette on the right hand side, a Layers palette, a Links palette, and so on. So one that isn't there is Properties. So if you click on that from the window drop-down, a new one will open, like so. And you can collapse that, and you can also click and hold on that, and drag and drop it to be stacked with your others. So this is quite a useful thing to know. And if you drag and drop it on top of your page, it'll become a floating panel. And sometimes when you open them from the window drop down, they do open as floating. It's totally up to you which way you prefer. The ticks next to each of the palettes on here suggest that they are open. So Control, this is this one along the top. So if you untick that, you will lose that. So if yours doesn't have that right now, then that'll be why. So you can just go and tick that and turn it on. And your tools one is those down the left hand side. So that's now gone. So this is very useful in customizing how you would like your interface to be. We're going to now have a look at the different display performances and screen modes available. So if you go to View and Display Performance, you'll see you can either have fast display, typical display, or high quality display. Fast display is to say you are working on a massive document with loads of images, lots of graphics, and it's running quite slowly. So you would want to speed things up as much as you can. So for that, you would click fast display, and I'll show you. I'm just going to drop in an image so you can see how that will affect images. So images will appear like this in fast display. If you change it to typical display, you then can see your image and work out what is going on. But it's not full high res in typical display. If you go and put it on high quality display, it will be a much crisper image. So they're the main differences between those different display performances. Also in the View drop-down menu, you get Screen Mode. So at the minute we're in Normal, and that means you can see the grid that you've created. If you change this to Preview, you lose that, and it's technically how your document would appear when saved as a PDF or printed off because you don't have any of your guides. The bleed and the slug, I wouldn't worry about that too much right now because we haven't got any bleed or slug on this document. So now we're going to create some type. So this little rabbit here is my rabbit Cody, and he is 8 weeks old in that image. So we're going to label him with some type. So to do that, you need to select the type tool from your left-hand toolbar. So if you click that T, you'll notice the menu along the top has all changed now. So to write some type, click and drag on your page. That'll draw a text box so you can write whatever you like. So to now edit that type, if you go to Window and then Type and Table, you can find the character and also the paragraph palettes. So if you select that once, the character one will appear, and then paragraph. So I'm going to just dock them in my palette panel on the right so it's a bit tidier. So to then edit this type, you need to select all of the type, and then you get all your options here. So here is a font drop down, and you can filter that at the top between the different typeface classifications. We'll go more into detail about them in the final week. So if you say select sans serif, whichever, and then in this section here, they're the different, no, that one doesn't actually have any different styles, but say we click Avenir, it has all these different weights. So instead of, for example, in Word or PowerPoint, you would click bold or italic, those little icons. Here, each typeface has its own family. So some won't have a bold typeface, and some might be called like black or heavy or something slightly different. So here are your different options for the weight. So we will select black. Here is your size, so make it a bit bigger. This one here is called leading, and that is the space between your lines of text that are within the same paragraph. So here, say I decided to put Cody 8 weeks old, but I wanted the 8 weeks old on the line below, I would click Shift Return, select all, and then by altering that, you can see it makes the space between the lines bigger or smaller. This option here is the tracking, so that is the space between the letters. So it treats the whole line of words or the words itself. So you can compress this, make it super tight or super loose. So we're just going to keep it at 0 for today. So that's everything in the character palette. So then if you look in the paragraph palette, here you have your justification options along the top, so which you'll have seen before. But another one worth noticing is this option here, and that is your space after. So that is if, say previously I clicked Shift Return after Cody and 8 weeks old, that meant that it put the text on a new line but kept it within the same paragraph. Whereas if I did that again and click just to return, that means it's in a new paragraph now. So I can then alter this space after. Also notice you can either have hyphenation ticked on or off. So now we're going to have a look at the Pages palette. So if you open that up from your options along the right hand side, it should appear like this, and those little dashes along the bottom you can click and drag to make the palette bigger or smaller. So we're going to keep it pretty big today. So you can now add more pages or delete pages by using these options along the bottom. So to add a new page, you would click the square with the plus in the middle. And then to delete a page, you can click delete, or you can drag and drop the page into the dustbin. So as you can see, these pages are appearing one on top of another and stacked. This is because when we created the document initially, we had that facing pages checkbox unticked. Whereas if we decided we wanted these to be spreads, you can go back to this option and go to File, Document Setup, and then tick Facing Pages. Okay, so now you can see you have a document with spreads in. So if you add a few more pages, that's what it looks like. You can move pages around. So to demonstrate that, I'm just going to copy this content and put it, say, on page 4. But say you now wanted to switch page 4 and 5 the opposite way around. So you can click and drag, just move it. So when you click and drag pages, you see you get these different options. So that line there means it'll come after page 7. whereas that one there means it'll come before, like so. Have a little play around with those different ways of moving pages so you get familiar with what the different icons mean. There's also some more options in the flyout menu at the top right. With your palettes, always have a look for this icon with, I think it's 4 horizontal lines, because that means there's some further options within the palette that may be useful to you. So a good one that's used a lot is the duplicate spread. So here, if you select a page and then hold down Shift and select another page, it'll select both. So here you have pages 6 and 7 selected, and then you can go to duplicate spread and it'll create them again at the end of your document. But because you had a single page at the back, it's laid out like this, but you can just swap that, put 8 to the back, and then you've got your spread like so. So we're now going to have a look at how you can colour some type or a text box. So to do that, open up the swatches panel from the right hand side. So these colours you have here are standard for all print documents. So if you open up the document, they'll all automatically be there, and they'll be slightly different if you're working on a digital piece. So say you want to change the colour of the word Cody, select the text that you would like to change the colour of, and then you can click the colour, and then same with that bit. If you want to change all the text within that text box, click on the text box and then notice these options at the top of the swatches panel. So you can have formatting the effects container. So that would be if you want to change the colour of the text box itself. So say we make that yellow, changes the whole fill to yellow. But if you want to change all the text, then click the T and it'll change all of it. So if you wanted to make a new colour, say we didn't like that yellow, you can then click Create New Swatch. And it'll bring up a new swatch, and then double click on the thumbnail of the colour, and it'll bring up this Swatch Options menu. You can then have a play around with these different drag and drop options to make a colour that you quite like. We'll go for that sort of corally colour. With preview ticked, it'll obviously show you the colour change you're making to the object you have selected. And click OK. And then you can do the same for the text. But if, like I said, just select, if you wanted just the 8 weeks old to be a different colour, then just have that bit selected, create a new, and then change it. If you wanted to name your swatches, you can select it so it's highlighted blue, and then click once again, or maybe once again, I can't quite figure out what the rule is there, but I think it's just click once again, it'll bring up this, but try double clicking if it doesn't do quite what you want, and then you can obviously change the name of the swatch here. There's also the tint option, so it might be clearer to see with this coral colour. You can change the tint of it here, and say you really liked the 50, but you wanted to keep that original one you made. If you click Create New Swatch, it'll bring it up as a separate colour swatch there. We're now going to have a look at how you would save or export your work. So what you would do is you go to File, Save As, and then it brings up this dialog box. You can then navigate where you'd like to save it, whether it's in your desktop. It'll be different for Windows and Mac. Just find a place you'd like to save it, and you can give it a name up here. So I'm just going to call it Cody document. And in the Save As option, this is saving it as an InDesign document. So this is, so you could then open this up and get the exact same what you've just worked on. So we will click Save. And then say you're wanting to send it to someone that doesn't have the Adobe programs, or it's like someone you've created the work for and they'd like to view it as a proof, you'll need to export it as a PDF. So to do that, go to File, Export, find where you'd like to save it, and there's other options here which we'll talk about later on in the course, but today we're just going to have the Adobe PDF print option. Click Save. And these options, they're mainly important when you're sending work to print, but if it's just for digital viewing or just proofing what you've created, make sure high quality print is selected from the preset option at the top. You can select certain pages here, so you could just select pages 1 or 2 by writing the pages you would like there. But if it's all of the document, tick all, and then you can select whether you'd like it to be in spreads or pages. So because we created this as spreads, I'm going to tick spreads. And then that's all ready to go. So just click export. And notice, well, it's just popped off now, but while you do that, there'll be a little loading icon that appears at the top left, and that shows you it's still exporting. So when that disappears, it means it's all done. So then you can go and find it in your Finder or wherever you have saved it. So this is mine here, and then I will just open that in Adobe Acrobat, and you can see that it's saved it as the spreads that we had.